All right, Sean Zittel, FightHype.com, joined with the greatest blow-by-blow commentator in my lifetime, the great Jim Lampley, of course, from HBO Boxing. And Jim, we had a tremendous performance by Terence Crawford, who you covered for a number of years on HBO. Starting with Breidis Prescott through Victor Postal. And what were your thoughts on Crawford's performance over this weekend?
Even better than I expected. And I fully expected him to win the fight and told various others that I was pretty sure he would win the fight, even though I've only had limited exposure to the opponent in the past. I never covered any of his fights. I haven't met him. I haven't met his now very illustrious trainer. And I was very careful to say to everybody who asked me in advance what I thought about the fight that I had only covered Crawford, had not covered the other guy, and therefore was operating with what amounted to a pre-biased informational inventory because I had not seen him. So. In big fights, I've seen him, but I've not seen him against a premier opponent like Terence. And so I had a preconception that Terence would win the fight. Nobody, I don't think even the most enthusiastic fan could have said that Terence was going to author the beatdown that he did. And I think that has to do with a couple of things. Really fabulous job of conditioning on the part of the trainers and the other people who helped to prepare Terence for fights. Coming in at 165 pounds, matching up pound for pound against a taller man, longer man, all very significant, and then super accurate, precise, punishing counterpunching. I mean, very seldom do you see a counterpuncher who can apply so much power and so much definition to his counter shots as Crawford demonstrated in that fight. And it was a spectacular performance. Puts him at the top, I'm sure, of most, if not all, pound for pound lists, and deservedly so. Going back to the moment when I first saw him on the undercard of a major pay-per-view in Las Vegas, and he was put in without a great deal of preparation as an opponent for Breidis Prescott, at a moment when Top Rank thought that Breidis Prescott was headed for much bigger things. And Timothy Bradley told them very definitively, if you put Crawford in, he'll beat Prescott. And he did. And it's just been a continuing escalation up the pound for pound ranking since that time.
You mentioned his counterpunching, brilliance. And you used to really put into perspective how great of an offensive counterpuncher Juan Manuel Marquez is. And, I don't know if people always associate offensive, with counterpunching. It's thought of sometimes more of a defensive thing. And it turns out Esau Diegas, along with Brian McIntyre, one of Crawford's trainers, loved Juan Manuel Marquez, studied him, and incorporated some of what he felt Marquez does best into how he trains Crawford and holds the mitts. Where does he rank, amongst the counterpunchers you've covered? And to put another question in it, where does this performance rank? Some people are comparing it to Mayweather's best performances against Gatti and Corrales and Hopkins, Trinidad. And yeah, your thoughts on all of that, Jim.
I thought of Mayweather Corrales the other night because I was trying to think of instances in which you had something that was regarded as an even or close to even fight, both guys having a chance to win, and one guy comes in and authors an unexpected beatdown. And certainly Mayweather Corrales observed that profile. There have been a few others. I think counterpunchers tend mostly to try to focus on accuracy and timing. and being able to take accuracy and timing to another level with power is not always easy to do. You have to plant your feet. You have to stand your ground. You have to do it in the way that Marquez did it against Pacquiao. And I thought that Crawford was amazing in terms of his ability to do that the other night. I'm sure that the guy that he beat thought it was amazing as well, because I don't think that Derek James, as trainer, could have anticipated that Terence was going to be able to beat his man to the punch with counter punches as often as he did.
Did any part of you? It's a part of the sport. Someone's got to win and someone's got to lose. But was this at all like a particularly tough beating to watch on the side of Errol Spence?
I felt some sympathy for Errol Spence. I certainly felt the frustration and pain of having gotten into a position that he did not expect to be in. Errol Spence, unlike Crawford, was overwhelmingly celebrated early in his career. This is the star prospect in the sport. This is a guy who's going to go on to an ultra dominant career. And as Crawford pointed out before the fight, he was never treated to that kind of expectation or persona early in his career. And maybe that is an advantage, an ongoing advantage for Crawford, that it's there in his back pocket. It sticks in his craw that people did not see him this way, even though he was a quality amateur. He brought some credentials into his professional career. But again, the night that he went in on a pay-per-view undercard against Bradus Prescott, he was the underdog. He not Prescott had expected to fight. He was put in with relatively short notice. And if you weren't Timothy Bradley, you didn't have any idea what Terence Crawford was going to be able to do that night. So everything he's done in his career continues to upset expectations and further stamp him as the kind of guy he is. And, great fighters over the years have sometimes been defined by a mean streak, a level of animosity within themselves that they're able to access at the moments when it matters. And Terence Crawford has never been shot. He is able, particularly late in fights, to put himself in touch with a real killer instinct and a desire not just to beat the opponent, but to destroy him. And that was totally on display the other night. And I think that Spence felt it and had to be chastened by it. And it'll be interesting to see now what he's able to do in his career. As logic says, he'll seek, and it should take a while to prove this, he'll seek to get a Crawford rematch. They made big money the other night. They could make big money again. There are enough people out there who bet on Errol Spence or favored Errol Spence to go back to the well and buy pay-per-view tickets again. It could very well happen again, despite the one-sidedness of that fight.
Will you touch on just how spiteful Crawford can be in there? A savage moment from him. Speaking of that point, he's winning the fight. He's dropping Errol Spence, and then he's grabbing his crotch and almost like a metaphorically holding up Spence's head, decapitated, to Jermell Charlo, his gym mate and stablemate, ringside. And you mentioned a rematch could sell, but would you rather see him fight Charlo, who was in the front row, or Jaron Boots Ennis? And again, just how spiteful he could be.
Anybody, whether it's Ennis, Charlo, the other Charlo, whoever it is, the next fight should be somebody other than Errol Spence. And Spence needs a couple of get-well fights, obviously, to regain his confidence and regain a level of public respect and affection that will be necessary to sell a rematch. And so an immediate rematch between these two, I don't think that's smart business at all for either of them. What does Crawford gain by going in and again beating, which I think he would, a guy who wasn't near being his equal the other night, despite the fight of the year implications and all the belief in advance that it would be a great fight. Oh, by the way, I thought it would be a great fight, but I thought that Crawford would win the great fight. And then in the first 2 or 3 rounds, it became clear, this is not going to be a great fight.
It turned into a great performance instead, right?
Yes, turned into a virtuoso performance. The kind of thing that, Terence has been looking for that frame, that picture for a long time, where the whole boxing world must turn and pay its attention to him. He's been waiting for that, and I'm sure that burned in him every single day of his training and preparation.